Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to my world of Warcraft. That just didn't feel right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome. Oh my god. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, bedroom gamers. This is my World of Warcraft Mage AoE grinding guide. These will cover the basics. I will be explaining to you the play-by-play process of grinding, the focus stats, what NPCs are the easiest to grind, which ones are smart to grind. There are many options, and this is an alternative leveling method, and you don't have to follow any of these steps perfectly. There is tons of room for tweaking and building your character how you wish. This method is pretty fun for those that enjoy farming, and maybe you just got tired of questing and you're looking for something different. Again, this will be the basics. I'm only showing up to level 40 because I feel as if I got plenty of experience to at least share some information and
Because
share
that's as far as you've made
what
it.
I believe is important in AoE grinding. And also, I believe that there's no definite way of leveling. This method of leveling is fun for those that enjoy farming materials, farming gold, or those that are tired of doing the chores of others, such as quests. Fun fact: grinding was the intended method for players to achieve levels in World of Warcraft. That was originally the idea. The initial design for quests was much different than what it is now. I'm going to show you a clip of John Staats, a World of Warcraft dungeon developer for vanilla at the time.
Yeah, like we stumbled into a game that was that successful by making as many quests as we did. Originally, we were just going to use quests to familiarize people with these zones so they wouldn't get lost in them.
Wow.
And people used the quest log as, like, when they said, well, I'm done with this zone, I'm now going to the next zone. And
Right.
they went to a zone that was way too high for them to actually play in, and then they got their ass kicked. It's not the goal of the game. We don't want to mislead people.
You can watch this full interview on Defcamp and Melderon's YouTube channel. The video is titled DefTalk Episode 16, Interview with John Staats, Vanilla WoW Dungeon Developer. This is actually a very informative video and gives you a pretty decent idea from a developer's perspective. So now that it's been around 3 minutes, let's get into this guide. I began just as everybody else. I quested until I was able to train Blizzard and spend a talent point in Improved Blizzard. I started with maxing Improved Frostbolt, I moved on to Improved Frost Nova, then I moved on to Permafrost, and finally I put a point into Improved Blizzard. You, of course, can do this a different way. There are plenty of different ways to build up to Improved Blizzard, but that is just the big one. You want to get Cold Snap and Ice Barrier. Those are very important. But the one thing that you want to avoid is Frostbite. You do not want Frostbite. Now, you do not want Frostbite because when you pull a group of 3 mobs, Frostbite has such a percentage to proc on a mob whenever you use a frost spell. Now, if you pull 3 and Frostbite procs on 1 mob, you're going to have 2 mobs coming forward taking damage, while 1 mob is frozen behind, not taking any damage. So please avoid Frostbite if you want to be successful. I did not begin the AoE grinding until I had a decent amount of intellect and stamina. I did this because this was my first attempt at AoE grinding and I wanted to have some cushion room to work with. My best advice for you is to start out with small pulls and slowly work your way up. And do not be afraid to die. Do not get mad at dying, even though dying it's pretty annoying. But it's a learning process. I died a lot. I died a lot even while using consumables, and honestly, you do not need consumables. You should not need consumables. They're helpful, but they do not hold a definite place in this method. You can do it just fine with your gear. In the beginning, I wanted a high mana pool because I used Mana Shield to tank damage, and for every hit is so much mana consumed. And then later I focused on both stamina and mana because I have Ice Barrier, and Ice Barrier can be casted for 300 mana, if I'm not mistaken, and there is no extra cost, which is perfect because that is basically the only shield you need. My first zone I started out with AoE grinding was Silverpine Forest. There's this great wall in southern Silverpine Forest that has humanoid NPCs, and they're perfect for AoE grinding. They have a nice little fire debuff on you if you get hit, so avoiding hits is very, very important. You can be in a group of people and it's still viable. There are also murloc spiders and various other beasts within that zone that are just as viable for grinding on. With grinding on these beasts, you can get cooking materials, and you can sell those cooked materials for a decent amount of profit. Later in the game, cooking becomes a pretty decent gold making method while you grind for junk or other materials. Now after Silverpine Forest, I move on to Hillsbrad foothills. I kill farmers and the miners just south of the farmers, and I kill various beasts within the zone. Same idea with the cooking method here. I highly recommend doing the quest Soothing Turtle Bisque for the recipe reward. This recipe allows you to make the Soothing Turtle Bisque, and a full stack, which is 20, will sell for 60 silver. This is quite a bit of money for this low level, and this money can stack up fairly quickly if you're to AoE grind the turtles. Now, AoE grinding the turtles is different than AoE grinding any other mob, because the turtles have such high frost and fire defense. Due to this, I was using Frost Nova, Cone of Cold, and Arcane Explosion. Arcane Explosion replaced Blizzard because Blizzard might do damage, but the slow effect can be resisted, and you're not really doing much if you're wasting 700 something mana or 520 mana, I think it is. You're just wasting too much mana for it to be effective. So all I did was I would Frost Nova, and then I would Arcane Blast when they're broken. I would hit them with the Cone of Cold, run around with Arcane Explosion. Arcane Explosion's doing quite a bit of damage because they don't have such a high defense against Arcane. And you just rinse and repeat. In Hillsbrad foothills here, in black I've circled the area where the farmers are. In white I've circled the area where the miners are, down there in that mine shaft there. And in blue here I've circled the whole river because throughout that entire river there are turtles that drop the turtle meat. In red are the Yetis. Now the Yetis were pretty good to AoE farm. I did not get any footage because that was a area where Alliance loved to gank, as well as with the farmers, but I was a little more lucky with the farmers than the Yetis. In Ultric Mountains, there are more turtles. Along this coast here, that I have highlighted, there are tons and tons and tons of turtles you can kill for the turtle meat required to make the Soothing Turtle Bisque. I moved on to Arathi Highlands. Within Arathi Highlands, there are humanoids and tons of beasts. There are just tons of beasts. I didn't work on AoE grinding the ogres or doing anything with ogres because I had leveled up past them. I passed that zone in quite a quick time. The spiders shoot out a web that snares you for something like 8 seconds, 6 seconds. It's quite a bit of time. All you have to do to avoid this is let all the spiders cast that spell, let the webs hit you, and then blink out of it. Luckily, you can blink out of snares. Just save blink, or basically save any utility for when you need it. That is if what you're fighting is tricky in some way. This is where dying becomes a thing because you're trial and error. But once you master that mob, then it becomes easy. You can weave kill quests into this AoE grinding, such as the kill quest you get from Undercity, so that I could get the gloves, intellect and stamina gloves, I believe they were. I forget the name of that quest, but it's right next to the Flight Master in Undercity. And I banged that quest out for some extra reward, which helped me later, and then I banged out the Raptor one, and it was fairly quick. Now we move on to Dustwallow Marsh. There are so many crocodiles, spiders, and raptors in this zone. If you can't grind at the murlocs or the soldiers and the deserters, just go farm on the beast, and then cook what you get from the beast. And if you have a mount by this time, your XP per hour is significantly increased. I did not have a mount by this time. I did not get a mount until I was level 43 because I did not plan properly. But trust me, if you plan properly and you save your money, it is worth getting a mount as soon as you can. Now that we're getting into a little bit higher of zones, and we're attacking things that give us cloth, such as humanoids, you're going to notice that there's a lot of competition. Now, there's not just competition with your own faction, it's the opposite faction. And you will run into those players that are farming these, and they have bodyguards. So always be wary about that in the future. Moving on to Stranglethorn Vale. I grind on jungle stalkers behind the Gurabashi arena because they dropped meat that I could cook and make gold off of, and that was the whole reason for grinding on these, because I had been level 40 and I was, I believe, 70 gold off of 75 gold? 75 gold off of my mount, which is a big problem. I got 4 levels from just grinding jungle stalkers. I had a lot of bag space at this point, so I was able to pull in 9 gold, an average of 9 gold, worth of junk each trip just from junk, 9 gold. And because I saved up on the raptor meat, I was able to make 3 gold from cooking. This came to 12 gold on average, which 12 gold a trip, that's not that bad, it's pretty decent. I also was able to maintain around 16,000 experience per hour during a 12-hour 40-minute session that I did record with an XP calculator. It's a lightweight add-on that is it's simple to understand, and all it did was tracked the total experience I get, the experience per mob, and the experience per hour and per minute. I was able to average around, again, 16,000 experience per hour, which is quite fast. And I was able to make pretty good gold, whereas most quests, they don't really give you gold. I noticed that there are a lot of quests that just give you experience, and that's cool, but I'm really wanting that mount. Your mount should be a big milestone. It's very important. By level 40, you're going to want your talent tree to at least look something like this. The 3 necessities... No, scratch that. The 4 necessities you need are Improved Blizzard, Cold Snap, ice block, and ice barrier. Those are 100% necessary. And that basically wraps this guide up. I hope that you learned something about AoE grinding. I hope you also understand the freedom of leveling in World of Warcraft, that there's not just a questing aspect of it. No, that's not the only design implemented in the game to have the player level. No, the original idea was grinding, and then they also implemented questing. And a lot of people saw the questing as the main way to level, but no, it's not. It's amazing how free the player is to go about this game. And I hope I've convinced some of you. I probably haven't, but whenever the game comes out, we will truly see how free the player is. It's unfortunate that the version I'm playing is a emulator, if you will. But I'm going to leave some extra footage here at the end for visual learners to just see how this plays out. I did have sped up clips, but those are pretty for those of us that love to watch the gameplay itself. And I'm gonna go ahead and roll that. I wish you all a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Thank you for watching. This was my Mage AoE grinding leveling guide. Bye. Honestly, there's not too much to explain here in these final clips. I'm doing the very basics. I don't blink to conserve mana, as you can see, but I do this. I do this because I want to save mana. I'm always scared that I'm going to be ganked out in the real world, so I usually save a little mana for that. Sometimes I'm worried that a monster or humanoid, the enemy, is going to resist whatever I cast, which isn't really too much. It's all frost, but the chances of them resisting that is a big problem. So I usually always save that 325 mana, because that's a couple arcane blasts, or that's a cone of cold and an arcane blast. Well, it's almost there. The math's almost there. But it's close enough. It's basically just the same start over and over. It's not even basically. It's the same beginning over and over, where I will run up to the enemy, or I'll wand the enemy, and I'll have ice barrier on me. So here's the pull. Here's what the pull's like. Ice barrier, pull, nova, run my distance, blizzard. Depending if I ran, I will run a little bit further, blizzard, cone of cold, nova, blizzard. You can place that cone of cold anywhere you want. Sometimes you can nova, blizzard, blizzard, nova, blizzard, cone of cold, / arcane explosion. Understanding the reset range is honestly all about pulling your mob and testing it, or finding it out on accident. And the best thing you can do is just use landmarks. For example, when I pull the raptors, there's tons of trees, and I use trees as my landmarks, as how far I should and should not go. I line these things up. Of course, they're lines in my head, so it's a little bit different for everybody, which is why I say use trees. This basically just becomes like everything else in your life. If you do it long enough, it's muscle memory, and you get a feel for it. You can feel when something's going to go wrong, or you can get a feel of whenever you're getting too far out of your bubble. Most monsters in this game you can pull pretty far. Pretty far. So it's not too big of a worry, but sometimes you're just blind to these issues. You know, you just kind of forget. Especially if you're melee class going to do this, you know. Melee class really isn't going to be thinking about that too often.